Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here with the next discussion for the raw contact. We're going to be going over session 4 today. It was known yesterday because I spent the whole day going to get a tattoo. So, yeah, it's covered in plastic right now. But you can see my dragonfly tattoo is under there healing up. So excited. Okay, so the session 4, let's go dive into this. Okay, so here we go. Does the shape of the pyramid have an effect upon the initiation? That's Don's question. So this was super confusing because my brain cannot possibly understand anything that has to do with geometry in my mind. So Ra says, if you will picture with me the side of the so-called pyramid shape and mentally imagine this triangle cut into 4 equal triangles. You got that so far? You will find the intersection of the triangle, which is at the first level on each of the 4 sides, forms a diamond in a plane which is horizontal. Okay, now I'm completely lost. The middle of this plane is the appropriate place for the intersection of the energies streaming from the infinite dimensions and the mind-body-spirit complexes, the person's various interwoven energies. So if you know the diagram pictures of what the inside of the Great Pyramid looks like, that chamber like the chamber that's supposed to be where the pharaoh's buried, which is, we know, most people know that there's never been a pharaoh buried in that one. It is like in the middle of the pyramid, maybe like a little lower than the middle. So even though I cannot picture the description that Ra has given us about the shapes and whatever, and the diamond and the triangles and the horizontal and the, I can imagine that if somebody really did that mathematically, it probably would make that chamber right exactly where Ra says it is. Yeah. Okay. So then it said, this was designed that the one to be initiated by mind be able to perceive and then channel this gateway to intelligent infinity. So this term intelligent infinity has really been sticking with me lately, and I feel like it's just their word for what we would think of as soul. That the soul is the part of us that is infinite and also intelligent. So he's saying that the pyramid is designed this way so that the person who's going to be the channel can access intelligent infinity. Not just theirs, but all of it. I just had a revelation. So okay, I decided to listen to the first contact and second contact highlights from Twitch because it I had only experienced that when it happened. I hadn't gone back and watched them again to see what the messages and stuff were that came through from Ra, because I do so many readings every week. Every time I stream, I do anywhere between like 6 and 12 readings. And everything. And I noticed that was about 2.5 months ago was the very first one. So I'm going to add this to the next Raw book discussion. Somewhere in there I'm going to throw it in. So okay, so on the second contact highlight, there is a message that comes through. And both of them, part of the message was to meditate. The sitter needed to meditate. And the first one was that they needed to meditate so that they could remember who they were, remember what their purpose was for coming to Earth. And the second one, it was to meditate so they could release their thoughts and reach a higher, deeper level of meditation. And that is so weird because in the book discussion number 4, when I go through sessions 2 and 3, there's a part in there where Ra's telling Dawn about what the purpose of the Great Pyramid is, and it was a sensory deprivation chamber so that people could release their thoughts and forget about their physical body so that they could reach a new awakening, they would feel like their body was dead and they would feel just their spirit. And it would be like a whole new thing where they could heal. And it was all about healing. So that is really crazy. There's so much more to that too, like about the distortions, that we have to figure out all of our mind distortions, body distortions, so that we can experience this law of one creator energy, infinite, intelligent infinity, is that what it is called? Intelligent infinity. But it was all about healing. It was all about healing. So I almost feel like the next time I see this person on Twitch that I need to share this information. Even if they don't really want to have me channel Ra for them specifically anymore, I feel like they need to know that new information has come to light, and that the deeper, higher meditative state is to help you heal. And maybe that was the message all along from the beginning, but for me, channeling the information comes through in bits and pieces. Cindy Kaza likes to explain it as playing charades, telephone, and Pictionary all at the same time. So yeah, I feel like that was the message all along. The message all along. That if you can get yourself into that state where you've completely disconnected from your body, your mind isn't getting in the way, that you can do some major healing. That's a big revelation. So yeah, I'll add this in with book discussion number 5. All right, so then Dawn asks, then at this point there is a focusing of energy that this extra dimension in response to our dimensions? And Ra says there are no extra dimensions. They would use the term multi-dimensions. So that's interesting that that term has come about, multi-dimensions. So So I'm curious to know if that's what the different densities are the different densities in the different dimensions. I'm not sure. Okay, then Don asks, is the size of the pyramid a function and effectiveness of the initiation? Ra says, for the purposes of initiation, the size needed to be large enough to basically be an entrance point for the multidimensional intelligent infinity, so that it would completely pervade and fill the channel, the person channeling, and that have enough space in it that both the person channeling and the person that needed to be healed could fit in there together. So that's interesting. Then Don asks, is the large pyramid at Giza still usable for this purpose, or is it no longer functional? And then Ra has this great analogy where it compares it to a piano out of tune. That the time and space, our time and space has changed so much since the pyramids were used that they're out of tune now. So only the ghost of the streaming of the intelligent infinity still remains due to the shifting of the streaming points, which is in turn due to the shifting electromagnetic field of our planet. And there's a discord in the vibratory complexes of those who have used the initiatory and healing place for less compassionate purposes. So basically Ra is saying that our Earth has shifted a lot since they used the pyramids, and that since its first incarnation of being built, people have used it for a lot of things that it wasn't supposed to be used for. So it's not going to work like it should because it's out of tune. You know, a piano can still play if it's out of tune, but it doesn't sound right. So I think he's kind of saying, like, I keep saying he, but you know, I think they are saying that if you tried to use the pyramid, it would probably still work, but it wouldn't work in the same capacity it did when it was first built. Okay, next. All right. So this is very interesting because Don is still like, hey man, can we still use the pyramids, dude? You know, and Ra's like, well, first of all, it's out of tune. Second of all, the time of the pyramids has passed. And then this is what he says. Remember, this is 1981. This understanding has, as the streaming revolve and all things evolve, changed to a more enlightened view of purity. Thus, there are those among your people at this time, in 1981, whose purity is already one with intelligent infinity. Without the structures, healer-patient can gain healing. So Ra's basically saying at the time of the pyramids, the humans were like, the way that I'm understanding it is, the Egyptians were becoming aware of this law of one, and that's why Ra decided to come to them and help them build the pyramids so that they could try to move on to this healing phase. But at the time this is being channeled through Carla in 1981, that we had moved and evolved to the point where there are already people who are so pure and understand the law of one in whatever capacity, and it explains that more further in this session. That they don't need a structure. They don't need this crystallized structure to do it, that they can just do it without having the aid of something else. And I would hope that that means that now in the year 2022, that we still have those people. And I really do feel like we do. Continuing on. Is it possible for you to instruct healing techniques if we could make available these individuals? So basically, Don's saying, Could you teach the people that are already available to do this? It is possible. We must add that many systems are proper. We must add that many systems of teaching, learning, the healing patient nexus are proper given various mind and spirit body complexes. So there's a bunch of different ways to learn the healing through the different types of people. We ask your imagination to consider the relative simplicity of the mind in the earlier cycle and the less distorted but often overly complex views and thought spirit processes of the mind-body-spirit complexes after many incarnations. So let's stop there and understand that. Because Ra speaks in a completely weird way that uses words that it understands. It uses words and combinations of words so that it understands, like, its perception of us, but it could totally just use way simpler words. Words like the mind-body-spirit complex, but really it could just say person, human, whatever. Okay, so in this section, Ra's talking about, so in earlier parts of our civilization, we were more simplified. But after many incarnations, we've been able to be less distorted. And our views and thoughts about spirit have changed. And that's why we don't need the giant structures necessarily anymore. We also ask your imagination to conceive of those who have chosen the distortion of service and have removed their mind-body-spirit complexes from one dimension to another, thus bringing with them, in sometimes totally latent form, many skills and understandings which more closely match the distortions of the healing patient processes. So basically he's saying there's some souls that have learned a whole bunch of stuff previously in other incarnations, and that they're bringing that with them into their incarnations now. That all the information is still there, even if they're not completely aware of it. Okay. There is one health, you call it, in your polarized environment, but there are several significantly various distortions of types of mind-body-spirit complexes. Each type must pursue its own learning, teaching in this area. So basically saying there's a whole bunch of different types of people that have different distortions, and each person has to pursue, each type of those people has to pursue a different way of learning and teaching. So that's interesting that there's not just one way to get to the same end. Okay, so then Dawn is asking, so then a selected individual would necessarily be one who is very in harmony with the law of one, though he may not have any intellectual understanding of it. He should be living the law of one. And Ross says that's correct and incorrect. They should have a distortion towards healing. So basically they should already kind of be a healer in some way. But then he says the incorrect part is the healing of those whose activities in your space-time illusion do not reflect the law of one, but whose ability has found its path to intelligent infinity, regardless of the plane of existence from which this distortion is found. So basically saying that this is a little confusing, but from what I can gather, it seems like he's saying that the person, the healer, can not necessarily be know all the ins and outs of the law of one. And they don't even necessarily have to have come to that information in some way. They just need to have their path needs to have led them to the idea of intelligent infinity in whatever capacity that is. Which it seems like there's multiple. Don's real confused, and he asks Jim if he understands, and clearly neither one of them know what the heck he's talking about. So he asks him to restate it in another way. So then he says there's two kinds of people that can heal. And to summarize it, there's two kinds of people that can heal. The first type is people that know the law of one, but don't choose to heal. And the second type are people who aren't conscious of the law of one, but heal anyway. Because I don't know if he's mentioned this yet, but it might be a little bit further in, that people who choose to serve others will come across this healing path and have this distortion, as they call it, to heal. So then he says, it is a further item of interest that those whose life does not equal their work may find some difficulty in absorbing the energy of intelligent infinity, and then become quite distorted, that causes disharmony in themselves and others. So I'm not really sure what he means here about their life not equaling their work. What do you guys think about that? But then it says, therefore, those of the first type, those who seek to serve, oh yeah, here it is. Those who seek to serve and are willing to be trained in thought, word, and action are those who will be able to comfortably maintain the distortions toward the area of healing. So basically, if you have chosen to serve and you're willing to learn, then you'll be comfortable doing the healing. But if there's some kind of conflict between your life and your work, then you might have difficulty doing this. All right, next. Don asks, will you train us? Ra says, we will. And then he really doesn't... Don starts getting really confused about what kind of questions to ask. And he basically just wants to know, like, how can you train us? So firstly, the mind must know itself, which I think that Ra kind of goes over this in a previous session, but it goes a little more in depth here. So the mind must know itself. So to me, that means, like, you've got to know your mind in and out. And Ra says this is the most demanding part of healing, is having to look in yourself, in your mind, and figure out all the ins and outs, the light and the dark, why you do things the way you do. I mean, like, this is all my interpretation of it, but that's the hardest part. And then you have to be conscious of the law of one. And it refers to it as a microcosm. So you have to have this consciousness of the law of one in some way, whether it's the actual law of one or it's just this infinite, this intelligent infinity. The second part is that you have to know your body functions, and how you have to have a balance between love and wisdom. So you can be really smart and know a lot of stuff, but have no love. You can have a lot of love and not know jack squat, but you have to have a combination of the two within yourself. And then you have to use your body's natural functions, which a little bit further, he explains again that you have to have knowledge of your energy pathways, natural functions from the dense to the fine. So to me, that means you actually need to know the physicality of your body and how energy works through your body. And also, I believe, chakras and auras and stuff like that. That's what I'm thinking. So then the third area is the spiritual. You have to be able to attain a contact with the intelligent infinity. So you have to know yourself. You have to have a balance between love and wisdom. You got to have knowledge of how your body and chakras and energy works. And then you have to be able to understand spirit, to listen to spirit, to see spirit signs, to know that it's there, and I've said this before, you got to know yourself before you can realize what is something else. So this part really makes a lot of sense to me, even though the way Ra explains it is really confusing. To poor Dawn and Jim. I've been saying this a lot. People keep asking, how I want to do stuff like this. How do I get better at it? And I keep telling them the first thing that you have to do is you have to meditate, and you have to be aware of yourself. You have to know your own mind. You have to know your own soul. Because when another soul, another energy with another consciousness comes near you, you have to know that it's not you. You have to be aware of yourself to the point where you know who you are so well that when something or someone else comes to you, you know it's not you. So all of that makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right. So then he goes into, Ra goes into a little bit more detail about the spirit part. Imagine, if you will, the function of the magnet. The magnet has two poles. One reaches up, the other goes down. The function of the spirit is to integrate the upreaching yearning of the mind-body energy into the downpouring in-streaming of infinite intelligence. So basically you have to be able to bring your spirit up to where the intelligent infinity is coming down. Which is very interesting, because that's, ever since I took the Paul Jacobs workshop, that's exactly how I visualize it. I visualize my soul literally coming up out of the top of my head, my crown chakra, and going up into the spirit realm to meet whoever it is that wants to come through to talk. And then I pull them down into me so that we can blend together. Our energies can blend together. So interesting that Ra should explain it that way. All right. So then Dawn wants to know if there's any exercises or instructions that would help people learn this stuff. And this is really interesting. So in 1981, Ra says, "We are not at this time incarnate among your peoples," suggesting that they have been before, which we know they were during the Egyptian time. But I wonder if they have been other times, and I wonder if there hasn't been a time between 1981 and now that they haven't chosen to be incarnated. So, but basically they're saying nobody's actually incarnated from us there on your planet right now, so we cannot show you by example. But then it says, healing is but one distortion of the law of one. To reach an undistorted understanding of that law is not necessary to heal, or indeed to show any manifestation, but only to exercise the disciplines of understanding. So he's saying I feel like he's saying that the healing is like one aspect of it. But to understand the law of one, you just have to be willing to understand it. You have to be willing to learn and understand it. You don't have to go through the healing part. Okay. So then Don's still pushing him for techniques about healing. Ra says, so the law of one, though beyond the limitations of name and your words basically, may be approximated by stating that all things are one. There is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and there is light and love, love and light, the infinite creator. So everything is of one. Pretty simple, but somehow also hard to understand. One of the primal distortions of the law of one is healing. Healing occurs when a person realizes deep within itself that the law of one, that there is no disharmony, no imperfection, that all is complete and whole and perfect, exactly how it is. Because there's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. So everything is perfect and complete and whole the way it is. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm sure a lot of other people don't know how they feel about that, because we experience what we think is bad things on a regular basis in our world. So how can you say that that's part of the law of one too? But in our spirit art, 2 different spirit arts, we're talking about how chaos was necessary. So that's interesting. I don't know how I feel all about that. Thus, the intelligent infinity within the person reforms the illusion of body, mind, and spirit to form congruent with the law of one. And this process has to be completed individually. So basically, Ra's saying, once you've figured out the law of one and you completely understand it and possibly have healed through it, that your body, mind, and spirit reforms. It reforms the illusion. I don't know exactly what that means, or what that would entail. Okay. One item which may be of interest is that a healer seeking to learn must take the distortion understood as responsibility for that asking and receiving, thus healing. It is an honor or duty which must be carefully considered in free will before asking. So to be healed is an honor and a duty, and you better realize that before you ask for it. I don't know what that entails or means either. Okay, so just like in all the end of all the other sessions, Don asks if they can do anything to help Carla make the sessions longer. And this time he asks if she's capable of doing 2 sessions in a day. And Ross said she is, but she needs to eat more. So she has more energy, I guess. So then they end the session, and again, Ross says this word, Adonai. So I looked it up last night, and I don't know if it means the same thing to Ra as it does on planet Earth, but according to Google, Adonai is the plural. It's a Hebrew word, plural for Adon, which means Lord or Master, and it was used as a title for God before he was given a name. It means Lord of Lords. And it also said that it shouldn't be one of the things said it shouldn't be said out loud. Shouldn't be said out loud, and nobody should name their kid after, like, nobody should name their kid that. So I wonder if Ra thinks of it as the same thing, because Ra's using it at the end of the goodbye. So he says, I leave you in the love and light of the one infinite intelligence, which is the creator. Go forth, rejoicing in the power and the peace of one, Adonai. The peace of one, Adonai. So, or I don't know. Is Ra saying that that's another name or word for the infinite creator? And remember, Ra is just using Carla's knowledge of the English language to share information with us. And that's why so much of it is put together so strangely, to the point where we can barely understand what the heck he means. So there's definitely a distortion there for that word. So unless Dawn asks at some point why it says that and what it means, we might never know. It could be a mystery. Anyway, that's session 4. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, there are the previous sessions. I think this is actually going to be number 5, but we went over session 4 of the book. And don't forget that there's also the highlight first contact and the highlight second contact under the Twitch highlights of when we contacted Ra ourselves, if you're interested in seeing that. So don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Go watch the other ones and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll be back soon with another discussion of the Ra Contact Volume 1. Bye-bye!